I used to wake up at 6 every morning, not because I like mornings, but because I had to. School started early, and my mother always said that if I wanted a future, I had to be disciplined. So I would drag myself out of bed, wash my face, check my phone, and complain about how tired I was. That was my life. Simple, predictable, safe. If you had asked me what I would worry about back then, I would have said exams, maybe my grades, maybe whether I would get into a good university. Sometimes I worried about small things like what my classmates thought of me or whether I looked okay in photos. Work was not something I worried about. Work was something that happened in other places, something you saw in videos online, something people talked about in serious voices on the news. It didn't belong to my world. At least, that's what I believed. February 28, 2026. I didn't wake up to my alarm that day. I woke up to a sound I had never heard before. It wasn't just loud, it was deep. Like the air itself was being torn apart. The walls shook, the windows rattled, and for a moment I didn't even understand what was happening. Then there was another explosion, closer, stronger. I sat up in bed, my heart racing, my ears ringing. What was that? I whispered, but no one answered. Then I heard my mother scream my name. Get up, now! There was something in her voice I had never heard before. Not anger, not panic, something worse. Fear, real fear. I ran out of my room. My father was already at the door, pulling on his shoes. My little brother was crying, still half asleep. What's happening? I asked. My father didn't look at me. Airstrikes, he said. We have to go downstairs now. Airstrikes. The word didn't feel real. It didn't belong in our apartment, in our building, in our city. But the third explosion made it real. The lights flickered. Then everything went dark. The first descent. We didn't pack properly. There was no time. My mother grabbed a bag and threw in random things: water bottles, bread, some blankets. I picked up my phone, my charger, and my notebook without thinking. We ran down the stairs with the neighbors. People were shouting, calling our names, trying to stay together. Someone dropped something and didn't even stop to pick it up. The basement door was already open. Inside, it was crowded. Too crowded. People pushed in, filling every corner of the space. The air was heavy, thick with dust and fear. Someone had brought a small flashlight, and its quick beam moved across unfamiliar faces. Another explosion shook the building. A child screamed. I froze for a second, right at the entrance, as if my body refused to accept where I was. My mother pulled me inside. Stay close, she said. The door closed behind us, and just like that, the wall disappeared. The first night, we didn't sleep. No one did. The sounds above us didn't stop. Planes, explosion, sometimes distant, sometimes so close that the ground trembled beneath us. Every time it happened, everyone in the basement went silent. We could hold our breaths and wait to see if the next one could be ours. My little brother clung to my mother. his face buried in her shoulder. He asked the same question over and over again. Are we going to die? My mother never answered directly. She just kept saying, No, no, it's okay. We are safe here. But I could hear it in her voice. She wasn't sure. None of us were. I sat on the cold floor, hugging my knees, my phone in my hand. There was no signal, no internet, nothing. Just a blank screen. It felt like the entire world had disappeared, leaving only this basement behind. That night, I opened my notebook. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid that if I didn't write things down, they would disappear. Or maybe I just needed to do something to feel normal. I wrote one sentence. Today, the world came to us. Losing time, days became strange. Down there, you couldn't tell morning from night. There were no windows, no sunlight, only darkness, broken by quick flashes of artificial light. We stopped using clocks. Time was measured differently by the number of explosions, by the length of silence between them, by how often people dared to go upstairs and come back. Some people tried to keep routines. One old man insisted on praying at certain times. A woman tried to organize food, dividing bread into small pieces so it could last longer. But most of us just waited and listened. The air was every day. It was humid, heavy, filled with smell of so many people in a small space. Children cried, then fell asleep from exhaustion. Adults whispered, arguing quietly about what was happening outside. Rumors spread faster than truth. They hit the airport. No, it was a military base. My cousin said a hospital was destroyed. No one knew for sure, and that made it worse. The outside world. The day after, my father started going upstairs. Not for long, just a few minutes at a time. Every time he left, my mother could sit completely still, her hands clenched tightly together. Every time he came back, we all looked at him the same way, like he was carrying answers. But he never had enough. The streets are empty, he said once. Some buildings are damaged. People are leaving the city. One day he came back quieter than usual. What happened? My mother asked. He hesitated. Then he said, a school was hit. My heart stopped for a second. What school? I asked quickly. He shook his head. I don't know. But that didn't matter, because suddenly every school felt like it could have been mine. Every classroom, every desk, every hallway I knew. I imagined them destroyed, and I realized something I hadn't thought about before. The life I had just a week ago might not exist anymore. My friend, her name was Layla. We sat next to each other in class. She always talked too much, always laughed too loudly. She used to complain about everything, but somehow she made it funny. We had plans. We talked about university, about traveling, about leaving the city one day and seeing the world. I tried calling her. Nothing. I tried again the next day. Still nothing. After that, I stopped trying, not because I didn't care, but because I was afraid of what I might find out. Writing in the dark. I kept writing. Every day, I added something to my notebook, small things. The try next to me stopped crying today. We only have 2 bottles of water left. I can't remember what sunlight feels like. Writing became a way to hold on to myself, because everything else was slipping away. My thoughts changed. Before, I used to think about the future all the time. Now, I only thought about the next hour, the next explosion, the next breath. I stopped caring about things that used to matter so much. My grace, my appearance, even my dreams, they all felt distant, unreal. The night everything went dark. It happened in the middle of what I think was a night. There has been explosions before, but this one was different, closer, louder. The entire basement shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The quick lights flickered once, and then went out. Completely. Darkness swallowed everything. For a second, there was silence, then chaos. People shouting, children screaming, someone crying loudly. I couldn't see anything, not even my own hands. My heart was beating so fast it hurt. I reached out blindly until I felt my mother's arm. I grabbed it tightly, as if letting go could mean despairing. Another rumble passed through the crowd, and in that moment, one thought came into my mind, clear and cold. This is it. This is how it ends. I closed my eyes, even though it made no difference in the dark. I waited, but the explosion didn't come. The ground stopped shaking. The screams slowly turned into quiet stops. After a while, someone managed to turn on a small light again. We were still there, still alive, but something had changed. I could feel it. Going back up, days later. Maybe a week, maybe more. The sounds above us became less frequent. The silence felt strange, unnatural. Finally, my father said, "I think it's safe to go up." No one moved at first. It was as if we had forgotten how. Then slowly, people began to stand. We walked up the stairs together, step by step. The door opened. Light flooded in. It hurt my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't see anything. Then slowly, shapes became clear. The street looked wrong. Buildings were damaged. Windows shattered. Debris scattered everywhere. Everything was covered in dirt. It was still my city, but it didn't feel like it anymore. I looked forward the direction of my school. I couldn't see it from where I stood, and I didn't know if I wanted to. At the end of something, I stood there for a long time, just looking, trying to understand what I was seeing, what I was feeling, but there was no words for it. Only one thought kept repeating in my mind: nothing will ever be the same again, because it couldn't. Even if the world stopped tomorrow, even if the buildings were rebuilt, even if life returned to something that looked normal, I knew something had already been lost, something that couldn't be fixed. Much 2026. I am still here, still writing, still trying to understand how everything changed so quickly. It started on February 28, 2026. That was the day the war began. But for me, that was also the day my life split into two parts, before and after. Before, I was a 17 years old girl who worried about exams and dreams. After, I am someone who knows what it feels like to wait in the dark, listening for the sound that might end everything. Someone who understands that survival can become the only goal. Someone who has seen how quickly a normal life can disappear. Sometimes I still think about Layla. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's safe, but I hope she is. Because hope is one of the few things I have left. If anyone ever finds this notebook, I want them to understand one thing. We didn't choose this. We didn't want this. We were just living our lives, going to school, making plans, dreaming about the future. And then one day, without warning, everything changed. February 28, 2026, the war began. And from that moment on, I was no longer just a 17-year-old girl.